Hi everyone, it's me, Ivy, and today we are reviewing Dot and Bubble. So, first things first, if you haven't been here for my previous reviews, which you should go check them out, what I did is before the season aired, I went ahead and predicted how each episode was going to turn out. To do this, I used my cats, random slips of paper, and tarot cards. And basically, I give my review of the episode, and then I compare it to my prediction and see if I look like a total idiot or not. I will go ahead and hand things off to Ivy from a couple of weeks ago, give you my prediction, and then we'll go into what I thought about the episode, and we'll also talk about some of the episode's really important core themes. In predicting whether or not this episode would be good, my random slips of paper said that it would not be good in the fun sense, which I feel is most of Doctor Who. When I asked my cat Nico, she said, maybe, it might be good, it might not be good. The card pulled for this episode is the Page of Swords. Some things associated with this card are spying, gossiping, feelings of confusion, being curious, being witty, being inspired, and mental agility. Using my tools, I came to the conclusion that this episode is not going to be great, but it's going to be witty and it's going to be fun and it's still going to be a really great time because of those things. Modern commentary angle that I believe I read it's going for is going to be like, meh, and honestly at some points I feel like it's going to be a bit of an eye roll, but the episode and the concept, you know, all of the scenes are going to be fun and campy and it's going to make up for it. Things first is the slugs / the villains. I don't know if they were slugs. I think we just called them slugs. But either way, they were anti-racist, anti-rich icons, and I absolutely loved them. That also scared me a lot. I was actually surprised at how graphic the deaths were in this episode. I mean, sure, it's not like we see a lot that's necessarily gory, but I mean, we are seeing very blatantly people being eaten alive, some of whom are screaming while it's happening. Ricky September's death in particular I thought was quite brutal. Yes, it happens off to the side of the screen, but the direct implication is that the dot flew through his skull and killed him, which is violent. Like, I don't know, I guess it just caught me off guard how violent some of these deaths were, and I think it really amped up my fear of the slugs and of the dots. I think there could have been a bit more done with the villains, like establishing their motivations and explaining a bit more how the dot would have created the slugs, why they created the slugs, why they were killing in alphabetical order, etc. So I do think a little bit could have been done there, but I did really like the design, and I liked that they scared me. The crunching noises I will never unhear. Quite liked the world building here, from the costuming to the setting design. I think one thing I really liked is how empty everything seems. It really solidified that these people are living inside their technological bubble, number one, but number two, that it's really just essentially a giant playground for rich people and isn't designed for an authentic lifestyle where you have to work or you're living with family, etc. I will say, again, I do think there's a lot that could have been added or improved upon with the villains, but I am kind of happy they didn't overload the plot too much, because I think it would have taken away from a lot of the political and commentary themes of this episode, which will have their own section later on. A highlight for me of the episode was hands down Lindy Pepperbean, who's an awful, awful person, but portrayed wonderfully by Callie Cook. She just did a really good job portraying that sort of apathetic, detached, rich girl with a painted-on persona. Especially towards the end, when she was revealed to be a much, much more evil person with very clear intention. Callie Cook just did a really great job, and I want to give her a shout out for that. I think it is an interesting choice to have a protagonist of this episode who is so unlikable, because especially on rewatch, you're kind of just rooting for the slugs. Like, at times it is really hard to feel attached or root for the citizens of Fine Time, which ends up being completely okay. But, you know, from a perspective of trying to enjoy the episode and sort of get into that core theme of Doctor Who of, like, the day being saved and yay, it does get a little bit hard when everybody who is trying to be saved is so unlikable. Overall, I really enjoyed the episode. I found it to be engaging. I thought it was an interesting concept, and I enjoyed it on rewatch. I wouldn't mind rewatching it again. And that really surprised me because I was 100% really expecting it to be some like super campy, whatever, anti-Gen Z, anti-social media commentary, and I don't think it ended up that way really much at all. Thinking about whether or not this episode meets my prediction, I don't really think so. I think next season I'm just gonna invest in an orb at this point. For Nico's maybe, I think that still works. I think the episode's pretty divisive, and I think there's a lot of elements of it that are so middle of the road. I can't blame her for having a hard time predicting if it was going to be good or not. I don't think that the random slip of paper was accurate. I think the episode was good, enjoyable, but I don't think it was really all that fun. Like, sure, there were fun elements, especially in the beginning, and the whole ridiculousness aspect of needing the bubble to walk, but the episode itself was quite dark, and I just didn't really feel a fun, campy element that much. Like, the episode itself is just dark, not only in its political messaging, but in the characters themselves being so cruel, in the deaths being so violent, etc. So, and as when it comes to the tarot card, I don't think that matched at all. I don't have anything to add onto that. I just don't think that predicted well at all. So one of the core themes in this episode, of course, was the social media commentary, which to me, I definitely didn't play as big of a role as I thought. And it didn't also stray into that boomer vibes I thought it was going to. I think there were some stuff that was a bit of an eye roll, like invoking the word offended, or making it to where they're so dependent on technology they can't even walk. I thought that was a little bit of an eye roll. But I also thought there were some good calls too. Like, for example, Lindy being a sustainable influencer but buying multiple versions of the same exact thing. That really, to me, calls into the current state of consumerism. For example, Stanley Cups. People bought those because they want to save on plastic and be sustainable, yet they're filling their cupboards with every single version of it they can get their hands on. Or how Ricky September appears to be mediocre, but also super famous and everybody wants him, wants to be like him, etc. And how people curate their bubbles on social media to become echo chambers, which ties into themes of racism later on that I'll discuss. I would say that class is very clearly the second biggest theme of this episode. Comments about only working 2 hours a day and how that's so difficult and so hard, and then rich parents buying this playground for their kids and funding their lifestyle is very real, and I have seen that a lot. I thought there was definitely clear themes of colonization at play also, especially at the end when they're like, oh, we're gonna tame and own the land, when they clearly have no skill as well as no appreciation or no connection to the land that they're just going to effectively invade and colonize. But all of these themes I've just discussed really tie into the central theme of this episode, which cannot be denied, by the way. It cannot be denied. Is racism. I am obviously not an expert on this topic. I don't experience racism and I never will. And so it's not really my call to determine if this part of the episode was done well. So I've been doing a lot of reading, both on positive opinions and negative opinions on this perspective. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but again, not my call, and I'm completely open to talking more and listening more about this. I think the one thing that we can all agree on, whether you liked how this was included or not, is that this episode should have been written by, or at the very least, more directly involved, a Black writer or a writer of color. There's no way of knowing to what degree Russell T Davies involved sensitivity readers, or perhaps some Black writers to get some perspective on how to include this. But either way, it feels very much like it's not enough. I've also seen it said, and I do very much agree with it, that it's a bit ironic to include Fine Time being all white as part of the commentary of this episode, considering that Doctor Who itself is predominantly white, both in casting and behind the scenes, and has been for 60 years. Either way, I still think it's awful and really, frankly, wrong not to include any Black writers or writers of color in this season, especially if you're going to tackle something like this, where the Doctor, or at least this lifetime and sort of memory cycle of the Doctor, is experiencing this sort of discrimination for the first time. Racism to me definitely didn't come out of nowhere or out of left field in this episode. I thought it was pretty strongly interwoven, such as Lindy blocking 15 when she first meets him, or saying that she thought he just looked the same. Another big example is her choosing to follow Ricky, a white celebrity who is very Doctor-like, over the Doctor himself, who is Black. So I don't feel like it was a plot twist per se, but I do agree with the thought that it was a little bit abrupt to only directly call it out at the very end of the episode. Racism is so deeply ingrained in our societies that, yeah, a lot of the time it does exist as this very normalized, I guess, under the radar sort of behaviors. But in the same hand, it also is, in many cases, a very intentional participation, and people are very aware of how they're benefiting from it. Another thing I agree with is that it has been said that the episode doesn't do enough to confront or combat the racism that's in it. And to me, this sort of ties into a problem that I have often with Russell and really just Doctor Who's political inclusions in general, which is that a lot of the time it's just shown or pointed out. There isn't really any helpful commentary on what should be done about this, or sometimes it's like it doesn't include any hope for the future, or it just feels passive in general. So I completely agree with that point. A lot of the criticism I've seen in general focuses in on that final scene between the 15th Doctor and the citizens of Fine Time, where their racist motivations and beliefs are really being realized and identified. Doctor pleading with the people of Fine Time to let him save them in particular is something I've seen a dislike towards, which it is in character for the Doctor to try and save everyone, even if they're bad people, but I can understand completely how it would be off to watch a Black Doctor plead with racists who actively hate him to let him save them, even if that involves saying, you know, something along the lines of, you can think whatever you want to think. People of Fine Time do face consequences, of course, in the sense that they're essentially sailing off to their deaths, which is called out by the Doctor. But I don't know, I agree with others that there should have been a lot more challenge here, like maybe pointing out that they've already let him save them, calling them out on their racism more. Like, I don't think it would have changed their attitudes or their behaviors or their decision, but it just feels a bit weird not to have that. Go back and forth on Ruby saying something, because it does feel odd that she doesn't. However, I also feel like if she did, it could have strayed into territory of her speaking over the Doctor or invoking a white savior narrative, which would have also been bad. So yeah, regarding this aspect of the episode's commentary, it's not for me to make a call on, and I do really suggest looking into positive and negative opinions of it to get a broader, deeper understanding of how it played out in the episode. Hopefully, and I say hopefully, but really it's a need. There's a need to have more diverse creators being involved in Doctor Who, and we have to see that in season 2. So, as always, I'm eager to hear your thoughts on this episode. If you enjoyed watching my prediction and my thoughts in the episode, you can leave a like, subscribe to my channel, tip me on Ko-fi, whatever you want to do. Either way, I hope you're staying safe, happy, and healthy, and I hope you're having a great day, night, whatever time it is for you. And I will see you next week, hopefully. Bye!